and welcome to Act 2, a podcast by Choosing Him Ministries with host Tisha James and myself, Andra Pape. Join us as we talk with others to learn more about moments when their own lives encountered in Act 2.
Good morning and welcome to Act 2. We have Dana Smith with us this morning. Dana is a local singer and songwriter and a worship leader in the metro Atlanta area. She has worked in Nashville as a demo artist for various songwriters and has sung with the Fayette Symphony at the Fred in Peachtree City and at the Southern Ground Amphitheater as a soloist with the Fayette Chorale. Her heart is to lead women to a deeper relationship with Jesus through discipleship, Bible teaching, and worship. Currently, she resides in Newnan, Georgia, with her husband, Chris, 5 children, and their Daisy the dog, which I think you can probably hear in the background. Beyond her music career, Dana and her husband are passionate about their love for Jesus and his calling on their lives to be the church to their community. They are committed to intentional discipleship and small group ministry, where they have experienced life-changing growth, both within themselves and with other believers. Dana, welcome this morning.
Thank you guys for having me.
Oh, we're so excited to have you.
Are.
And oh my gosh.
You probably will hear Daisy dog in the background because she is currently snoring at my feet. So
That's okay.
Welcome, Daisy.
Yes, exactly. Well, you know, and I'm hoping it doesn't pick up, but I can hear my dog upstairs trying to eat. She's a schnauzer. She has neurotic issues. And like, I can hear her trying to eat up there. And I'm just like, oh man, like,
No, that's just life. That's what we do.
It just is what it is. So, but you guys, we are so excited to have you, Dana. Like,
thank you.
For you guys that don't know, Dana and I have just recently met. So I was super excited that, like, I feel like we've talked just for a few minutes and like, you're just one of those people, like you put people at ease instantly. So I'm really excited to like get to know you a little better today. So yeah.
And we had Dana sing at our Choosing Him Ministries, The Gathering, this past month. And so as I was reading out all the stuff she does, I wanted to go, and she's our worship leader because Dana's voice, I'm telling you, if you've ever been a fan of Celine Dion, you'll forget you'll say Celine who after you've heard Dana.
Wow. What a compliment, Tisha.
I mean, because you just have a way of bringing heaven to earth and just on her knees.
Well, you know, when you grow up in the 80s and 90s and you listen to Celine Dion and, you know, those power voice artists, like you kind of mimic them. So that's a huge compliment. Thank you.
Well, she's kind of been up there in our family as far as music goes. And so that's great. That's how I describe you. Like if you've ever heard of Celine, you will say Celine who, what you've heard Dana.
And it's not just Tisha. Like I had dinner with a friend last night and she said the same thing. She was like, you've never heard her sing? And I was like, no. And she's like, she has the most beautiful voice. And I was like, wow, okay. So yeah, I'm gonna have to go and listen.
Yes. So and at the end, we'll let you tell everybody how to be able to listen to your voice, to hear you, how to connect with you. So
absolutely.
Absolutely.
So you guys, you know, as you know, we like to talk with women about their Act 2, like just a season in their life where God met them where they were and just helped in a transition of some way. And so today, Dana, we just wanted to hear a little bit about your testimony, about just a time in your life where you feel like God kind of met you where you were at and helped with that second act, that transition.
So, I have a ton of second acts in my life, right? So as I was thinking through this, I'm like, what is the most like transitional or transformative one? And it would have to be when I met my husband. So I want to give a little bit of a backstory, you know, prior to the actual second act, because I think that will kind of help, you know, understand, you know, how I got there. So I grew up in a Christian home. My parents, we were Methodist growing up, and loved the Lord from a very young age, gave my life to him at a very young age. And I consider myself, when I was little, like the playground missionary, right? Like, so I was just the kid on the monkey bars. And when you asked me who my best friend was, I would say, oh, that's Jesus. Don't you know?
Oh, sweet.
I mean, I loved Jesus from a very young age. So, you know, I just remember having a distinct calling on my life at 10, so I just knew that God had something planned for me. And like a lot of teenagers, you go through a rebellious stage of life, which unfortunately I did. But I found myself pregnant at 16. And so I had a baby, and I was very different from most like seniors that go to high school. I would take my son and drop him off at daycare, and then go to school, and then go back and pick him up and go home. And so I just had a very different life when I was young.
Right.
I had to grow up really quick, right? So,
Right.
So when I was a senior in high school, shortly after I graduated, I met a man I fell in love with, and he wanted to be a daddy to my son. And so it just made sense. I'm 20 years old, and I think I met him when I was 19 and a half. We got married within 6 months of meeting each other. It was very quick. And got married. We were together for 10 years, had 2 more children. And it just was a not super healthy situation. So that ended in a pretty horrible divorce. And so here I am, in this valley, in this in-between stage where I know what God's calling me to. I know what I want, and I know what my desires are, but I'm just not quite there yet. And so, so I met my husband. Let's see, what year was that? 2008, because I remember we met online. And fun.
That's fun.
Yeah, but it's a fun story that we get to tell. But we met online, and come to find out, we knew a lot of the same people. Our paths never crossed growing up, but we knew a lot of the same people, so that was fun. And he had a ministry background. I had a ministry background. Both of us had a little bit of wounded, ministry experience. And so I say that when we met, I knew that God had a plan for us as a couple, right? As an individual, I knew that. But then when I met him, I was like, there's just no way that this is coincidence. God's hand is in this. We definitely have a plan together. And so we just grew, and here we are today. So I would definitely say that was my second act for sure. Yeah.
Great. That's amazing. So, okay. So you kind of touched base on like the valley, the in-between, like what, like, tell us, how did you cling to God and keep your faith during that time? Because it is so hard, especially, I mean, you are sitting here, and for those who are just listening, you guys, she's like beautiful alabaster skin, blonde hair, gorgeous woman sitting here who looks like she has it totally together. And so it's really hard to like hear that. And like, like we kind of sometimes gloss over like those really hard valleys, like that moment where you're just like, oh my gosh, because you are a single mom with how many children?
3. Mm-hmm.
That's what I was thinking. Okay, 3 children. I mean, that's not an easy thing to bite off. And so how did you search and find God in those moments?
So I wish that I could say that I had it all together in the valley. I wish that I did that perfectly, and it was wonderful. And God and I were just, and there were times that happened, but I think that the valleys is what kind of shapes us, right? So I didn't do it well all the time. And I think that, in talking to women who could be in this valley right now, it is so important. And I tell this to my kids, my older ones, right? I mean, the younger ones, they'll get there, but especially my younger ones. I have a senior in high school, a girl. But influence is so important. And the people that you surround yourself with is so important. And so when I divorced my husband, when we went through that, there was a good period of about 2 years where I desperately wanted community, and found it in a crowd that was not. And I knew in my heart that this crowd is not my people. These are not my people. but I desperately wanted it. And because I was not patient and allowing God to, just heal me and let me find that, I found it in the wrong places. And so I met this guy, we dated. It was just not a good situation. But I remember being at the end of my rope in that like 18-month period of time. I remember being at the end of my rope, and I remember a very distinct moment where I'm gonna cry, y'all. I'm sorry.
Hey, oh, that's okay.
Where I was at the end of myself, and that's where I feel like God says, "Okay, you're ready. You're ready." And I just remember falling flat on my face and weeping and saying, "Lord, I'm trying in my own flesh. I'm trying to do this on my own, and I'm tired. And I'm ready for your act 2. I'm ready for your will." And I completely surrendered. It was this moment of just giving up everything and myself, and offering myself to the Lord again, and offering my children to the Lord again. And so it was after that I started going back to church again. I was just surrounding myself with people I knew that I needed to have my people. I needed my people. And within like 4 months, I met Chris. So isn't that how God works?
Yes, it is.
He had to bring me to the end of myself. And so, and it was such a learning time too, and a teachable moment for me. And now I can use it to teach.
Absolutely.
Other people. So
that brings the analogy to me of like when you've got somebody in the pool who's drowning, and somebody goes in to try to save them, but the person's fighting them so hard. You're like, I can't save you until you finally just surrender, and then I can pull you out. Yeah. And it's that visual of, God's like, I'm going to save you. That's not the question.
Absolutely.
But how fast this happens,
Exactly.
how fast we change your circumstances.
That's right. Yeah.
Totally surrendering to me.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And then we'll change you from the deep end to the shallow end and out of the pool.
Yes.
But we do. We fight him, and we think we know what is right for us. And he's like, if you'll just be still and be quiet.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
During that season of time,
Mm-hmm.
when you were kind of like, for a better word, like wrestling with God over like, what does this look like? How I'm going to walk out my life. Like, I'm sure there were birthdays, holidays, things like that. Like, how did you approach that? Like in that in between, before your, I guess, like, true, like surrender to God. And then after, I mean, I'm sure it changed. Like, I'm sure.
Oh my gosh, totally different. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, there is when you're in a valley, and I'm all about right now. I'm all about right now not being a victim. This is like the heart that I want to tell the church in general. If we can get out of this victim mentality of, it's his fault, it's her fault, I'm here because of this, I'm not in this place because of this situation or because of that. If we can get out of that, like wanting to blame everything else in our lives, it will completely change our mentality and our outlook. So I think the difference between, just living life in that season in that victimhood season, you're miserable. You're miserable, you're unhappy, and you bring everyone else around you down. Right. And so, so after, and there was so much growth. Oh my gosh. When I met Chris, and we both were growing because we both had hurts, different kinds of hurts. And so I kind of say we kind of got out of this valley together. Right. And I think that he taught me a lot about just surrender and not holding on to anything from the past, not looking back, and just keep moving. But it's very different now, very different. I think that one of the very first scriptures that I memorized was Romans 12:1-2. And it says, do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So it is a constant, this is what Christ talks about when he says dying to yourself, picking up your cross, following him. It is a constant daily, minute by minute decision. Do I want to live by the patterns of the world and be a victim and blame everyone around me? Or do I want to say, I'm not going to live by the patterns of the world, and I'm going to be transformed by the renewing of my mind? And it's a battle. It's just a daily battle. And there were many times in between when I finally surrendered. When I finally surrendered until Jesus gave me, my forever, right? Like that time right there was probably the hardest in just learning patience. I don't know if you guys are familiar with any of the personality traits, but like, I think it's Myers-Briggs. I'm an ENFP. Okay. And then on the Enneagram, I'm a 7. So I don't know if you're familiar with any of that, but
yeah, you'll have to explain those.
Okay.
We're familiar with those names, but I forget what's
right. So I will give you a very brief description of my personality. And this is what my family has said since I was little, itty bitty, but I am a ready, fire, aim.
Okay.
Before I'm ready, I will jump. And there's some beautiful things about that personality once you're fully surrendered, right? But until that time, it's so dangerous because I am so impatient for what I know is coming and what I know I need and want. So there is a constant just dying to myself, right? And just surrendering in that mindset and saying, okay, I'm going to trust. I'm going to be patient. I'm going to wait. And I know you're coming through. I know you're coming through. And so I don't consider myself a ready, fire, aim person anymore. So, I mean, in the good things I might be, like someone told me once, I have a Bible study of about 6 women, and we were talking about like who we can relate to in the scriptures, right? And one of the examples that one of the ladies said about me is she goes, I see you as oh, hold on just a second. It's going to come to me. Peter. Okay. I see you as Peter in the boat, finally recognizes who Jesus is on the shore. He just jumps in. Yep. And I was like, that is so sweet. Like I love technology, right? So yes, in those instances of just like ready, I'm just going to jump, like it's great. But when you're not completely surrendered, it's not very healthy.
Right.
That's a very beautiful way to put that. I haven't heard somebody talk about your strengths and weaknesses in that terms. And that's, I'm curious now. I'm gonna have to do the Enneagram.
I know. Yeah.
Totally do it. It's very eye-opening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have to do that.
Is it eye-opening or just confirming? You're like, yeah.
I think it's a little bit of both.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both.
Oh my goodness.
So you and Chris both together are very ministry minded.
Yes, absolutely.
Tell us about that journey and how God has moved y'all in and out of different opportunities for ministry and what that looks like for y'all.
Yeah. So Chris has a background. He went to Georgia Tech and then he went to seminary after that. And when I met him, it was funny because on his profile, his online profile or whatever, he said his secondary degree was not as profitable. So it's like, and then when I met him, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Ministry pays nothing. So yes. Anyway, so he has a background. He pastored churches. He started a church back in I think 2006 before we knew each other. So when we met, we just knew that God was up to something because we both had such a heart for the church. I have a worship experience background in ministry, and so we just knew really from the very beginning that God was going to plant us and do something in us as a couple. We've had a small group ministry in our home that wasn't really affiliated with any church that we've been a part of. We just felt like God wanted us to start something that was like cross denomination, and just have people of all faith, or not all faiths, but all denominations and all backgrounds. So we've been doing that we've taken breaks. We're actually on a sabbatical right now because we've moved and we're trying to just get our, bearings again. But we have done that for like 6 or 7 years. We knew that when COVID hit, we knew that God was calling us to kind of again begin this kind of home church or cell church type ministry. So that's kind of where we are, and just in the waiting. We're in that stage right now. We're like, okay, God, we're kind of waiting for what the next step is. But we both have such a passion for the church and for discipleship and for just spiritual growth. He's doing a discipleship with men, and I'm doing that with women. And that's really where the growth is,
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That is amazing. That's so wonderful. Like that God has blessed you with a partner to do that.
Yeah.
Like that is just so
it's
wonderful.
so much fun, y'all. It is so much fun. My friends they're always like, oh, I'm sure you and Chris have talked about that for hours, because we will sit down and talk for hours about scripture. We're such nerds.
That's great.
Like we will I'll say, hey, will you help me walk through, like we went through our Bible study, went through the whole book of Romans, and Romans chapter 13 just did me in. And I was like, you need to help walk me through this. So we'll sit for hours and talk about it. It's just, I love it. It is so much fun. It's so much fun. Yeah.
That is awesome.
It's beautiful to see you talk on this side of your valley. What advice would you give someone who has not gotten to this side of the valley yet? Who is facing something that's deep in front of you, or they're in the middle of it? Because I'm sure there's times when you were in the middle, you couldn't see, you didn't have the hope or the vision that where you're at now.
Right.
Yeah.
So how would you encourage someone who's not there yet?
Yeah, that is a great question. Obviously, don't give up. I would say, again, one of the things I have learned through this, and one of the most important things, is just community, and having a group of people around you who are your people, who you trust, and who will call you out when you need to be called out, and who will love you and walk through this with you. Life wasn't meant to be alone, right? Like we can't journey this alone. And so I just say, surrender wholeheartedly, 100%. Don't hold on to any part of your life, because it will not take you anywhere good. So I would just say, don't fall into the patterns of the world. Surround yourself with community and women who love you, who have your best interest at heart, and just keep praying that and trusting, God is faithful, and he's going to bring you through it. And another thing is just enjoy. This is something I have the hardest time on, but enjoy the path, like enjoy the journey. So if you're in that in between and it's really, really tough, just find glimpses of like beauty in it and enjoy what you can, and just understand, God told Abraham and Sarah, this is the covenant I have for you. This is what's going to happen. And they didn't do it. They didn't do it exactly right either. They were impatient too, but just realize that he will come through. He is faithful. So yeah.
That's wonderful advice.
It's very encouraging.
Yes, it is. It is. So, okay, Dana, we are just starting this. You are our first person we're asking, but we're going to start asking our guests, like, what kind of legacy do you want to leave?
Ooh.
I know. So
I love that question.
I know. Well, it's a big question, but I think everybody has something different that they want to contribute, because we're the body of Christ, and it's hands and feet and different strengths. So what legacy do you want to leave?
Wow. First and foremost, like, I think my primary ministry is my family, right? And my children. And so I want my circle, my closest circle, to say, you know, mom was on fire. Like she just loved Jesus, and she told about Jesus to everyone she came in contact with. And so that would be like the primary. But I think, like, as far as legacy in the body of Christ, or as, you know, for the church, Chris and I are both kind of like, we're kind of pioneers. So it's like we're like the ones that will go before and just do something that's really not popular, or, you know, and that was him. Like he started this church and coffee thing, and it was way beyond his time, or way before his time. So we do feel like we have a calling to something that is not trendy yet, and not completely like the church may not completely understand it, but we believe with all of our hearts that this is what God's calling us to. So I would say just being faithful as a pioneer, and recognizing that, or people recognizing they did something when it wasn't super popular, you know.
I love that.
That is, yeah, that's amazing.
I think that's a great question for all of us to ask.
Yes, I love that.
It's always tell you start with the end in mind. What do I want my legacy to be? Well, if I'm not living my life to support that, that's not going to be my legacy.
Yeah, exactly right.
So it's a really self-reflecting
It does
question that I
it
think we
helps you
all need
stay
to consider.
focused. Yeah.
That's
I know, I love that question. So I'll have to keep reminding myself every day.
That's what we should just write it somewhere in our mirror in the
Okay.
bathroom. So yeah.
That's right. That's
Well,
right.
Dana, okay, so how can people, if they want to connect with you, how can people connect with you? We're also going to put it up on our little podcast, but
Absolutely. Yeah. So I have an Instagram. I don't even know what it is, y'all. I mean, I'm 35 years old. I am so not.
You know what? That's totally fine.
Yeah.
You can just say Instagram, and you guys just know
Yeah.
that you can go to our notes and our
Yes.
podcast, and it's going to be available there.
Okay.
Right. And I have a Facebook page. And really, you know, like we aren't connected with a church right now where I can say, hey, I'm on staff at this church. I've been on staff at several churches, but not, you know, I do things locally all the time. So if you just want to get in touch with me that way, you know, on Facebook. Yeah, absolutely. And I have a MySpace that has my music.
That still exists.
Oh my gosh. That is the
Dana,
best
sorry,
thing.
you are so young, but you just totally aged yourself right there with that statement.
That is the best thing I have heard all day. You're like, and I have a MySpace. Oh my
love it.
gosh.
I don't know if it's still out there. I don't even know. I wrote like an EP when I was in my valley, right? So in this way, I wrote an EP of about 6 songs. It was so funny because I was like, it's secular music. It's not even Christian music, but it all was like completely had these tones of what I was going through at the time.
Right?
Yeah.
MySpace. I have no idea how to get to it, but
Oh my gosh. You need to get to it and put it on like Instagram or Facebook, because
Right.
I know.
I
Yeah.
can't even tell you how to log into does MySpace
Right.
really does it even
I don't even know if
exist?
it
I
exists.
don't even know either.
So Dana, you have written several songs.
Yes. So I have.
Are they on
I do have-
YouTube?
They are on YouTube. Yeah. If you look for Dana Smith, yeah, there's some stuff on YouTube too.
Yeah, because they're amazing. People need to check that out and hear
Yeah.
your voice.
It's super encouraging because I really do want to have more of a presence, you know. So I'm just like, I don't know, there's so many facets of like I'm a worship leader and I write music and I'm a songwriter, you know, that kind of stuff. But there's just so many facets of like I love to teach and I love to, you know, so I don't know. Yes, go to YouTube.
You have a beautiful heart and a beautiful soul, and you're very
Thank you.
encouraging even to us. Just your heart for Jesus, for ministry, for people. And it's no doubt that God had a calling on your life from the beginning. And it's no doubt that your past is what made you who you are today. And it's
Yes.
beautiful. Yep.
Thank you.
So thank you for taking some time to share your story with us and with our listeners, for being transparent and vulnerable. And our prayer is that whoever's hearing this today that needs this
Absolutely.
encouragement in their
Thank you.
life will be encouraged
Yeah,
and
that's my
find
prayer.
some hope.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. This
Thank
was
you,
fun.
Dana.
Thanks, you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you. This is great.
Yeah, and listeners, y'all can find more information on our notes page, either on our YouTube channel, and also we are now picked up by Apple Podcasts.
Yes.
So you can find Act 2 by Choosing Him Ministries. Don't forget by Choosing Him Ministries,
Yes.
because that's how you'll locate us. But you'll find this information there as well, so you can hear
Yes.
Dana's story.
And please give us we'd like a 4 or 5 star, whatever. But give us a rating and give us a review. It doesn't matter if you tell us we sounded horrible. It doesn't matter. The reviews and the star ratings are what puts you in the algorithm to get you bumped to the top when you search for Act 2. So anyway, don't forget to like a comment, something.
Yeah, somebody needs to hear this story today.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Dana. And thank you, listeners, for following Act 2. And we will see you next time.
Bye, guys.